Today we find ourselves in Francis Scott Key Park, where Canal Road becomes M Street, just where the traffic from 35th Street turns right onto M Street to then turn left onto Key Bridge. This intersection is one of the most vexed in Washington, and that says a great deal. This land was developed as a park by the Francis Scott Key Foundation and donated to the National Park Service in 1993. It was so named because Key lived nearby. We are here to reflect on ourselves as the people of God, in covenantal relationship with God and with one another. A covenant, from the Latin meaning to agree, binds people by mutual agreement, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, unlike the transactional relationships of contracts. In today's first reading from Genesis 17, God establishes the covenant with Abraham and with his descendants forever. Israel's unfaithfulness over the generations strained the covenant, but God was always faithful, always renewing the covenant. We live in the yet again renewed covenant, the new and everlasting covenant that Jesus established through his death and resurrection, and that we proclaim in the Eucharist as we consecrate the bread and the wine. Living out the covenant of real relationships among people has proven a challenge throughout the millennia, and what was the Christian church became more splintered by the day. First between East and West, then Reformers and Counter-Reformation Catholics, then among Catholic schismatics and Protestant splinterings. What saved us all is that God is one, God is loving, and God is faithful to the covenant. As we prepare for our July 4 celebrations next week, we might regret the schisms and splinterings that have occurred throughout our country's life. We might wonder if covenantal relationship among residents and citizens could unite us all. Covenantal relationships balance the individual person's need for personal freedom to choose, with the needs of the greater community. Unfortunately, we now realize that the European settlement of North America brought some freedom for some Europeans, but also ostracism for other Europeans, not to mention slavery of Africans and exploitation of native peoples. Worse, in the post-1960s era, ideas of personal freedom became exaggerated, and a new variant of such freedom in the present era is asserted by those with economic or group interests that work against the covenant. Some years ago, the question was debated of whether America the Beautiful might be a more edifying national anthem than the Star-Spangled Banner. The former makes peace central, whereas the latter makes victory in battle central. A quick look at the text of the two songs, though, makes this proposition doubtful. The land of the free and the home of the brave fits well with God crowning thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. But both cloak a history of exploitation and so will not unite. We might also ask whether some idea of God or the transcendent or the higher power might unite us. This too is doubtful. In fact, it's hard to imagine a religion or spiritual image that would be unifying. But if the absolute individual freedom of each and every person is the unit of analysis and the highest ideal, then what will we have but ever more splintering? The Forest Service, the space program, agricultural subsidies, tax breaks for businesses, among many other options, all require some amount of mutual acceptance. You may not share my priority, nor I share your priority. But if we could agree on priorities that balance the individual and the group, maybe we could move forward. But if I find you unworthy of a priority, then we are all in trouble. So what to do? Jesus' mode of ministry that we see in today's gospel reading might be our model. One person at a time, one moment at a time, one act of faith at a time. Ultimately, the challenge of our country's renewal and reunification, as well as the Christian Church's renewal and reunification, depend on individual people acting in good faith for individual flourishing and for the common good. We are not God, but we possess divine authority to invite reconciliation and to offer healing. Like Candide, we can cultivate our own gardens, but only with optimism and real hope will there be real productivity and real results. Let's recommit ourselves to the covenant today and be recharged with divine hope and energy on behalf of our world.